Imagine this serene question time. Marine. The world is silent. The skies are clear. And then, without warning, the oceans begin to move. Not crash. Not rise. Move. Across every coastline, water bulges outward as if the entire planet is being pulled by invisible hands. In less than an hour, coastal sensors from Japan to California scream out the same impossible measurements. The lunar gravitational pull has doubled. At first, people think it's an error, a malfunction, a glitch in the satellites. But then the tides rise 10 meters, 15, 20. Entire shorelines vanish before sunrise. Boats are ripped from harbors as if yanked by a monstrous magnet. Rivers reverse direction. Bridges sway. Skyscrapers groan under new stresses they were never designed to withstand. And not to get on the coastal. And then the real horror begins. The moon, our calm, familiar companion, no longer sits peacefully in the sky. It looks bigger, closer. Its pull on Earth's crust intensifies, triggering a series of microquakes, thousands of tiny fractures racing across the planet like cracking ice. Volcanoes simmer, pressure builds. Animals panic long before humans understand what's happening. Air pressure shifts, weather patterns twist violently. The planet begins to feel unstable. Scientists rush to calculate what happened, but the numbers make no sense. A moon with twice its current gravity shouldn't even exist in this orbit. Something has changed the rules of our solar system, and Earth has only hours before the consequences multiply.
Before we go deeper into this terrifying scenario,
Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment your question below. The idea of the moon's gravity suddenly doubling sounds like pure science fiction, but it's a fascinating thought experiment because the moon is not just a glowing object in our night sky, it is one of the most powerful forces shaping life on Earth. Its gravity stabilizes our planet, controls the tides, influences weather, and even helps maintain Earth's axial tilt. If that delicate gravitational balance were to change even slightly, the consequences would be profound. But doubling that gravitational pull, that's an entirely different level of chaos. So, what would actually happen if the moon somehow gained twice its current mass, or if its gravitational influence on Earth doubled instantly? Would the oceans rise and swallow cities? Would earthquakes tear across continents? Would the moon spiral toward us, tearing Earth apart like a gravitational shredder? Or could the planet somehow survive long enough to adapt? In this video, we're going to break down the scenario step by step using what we know from physics, orbital mechanics, and planetary geology. We'll see how tides transform, how Earth's crust responds, and how the long term future of the Moon Earth system is altered forever. This isn't just a disaster scenario, it's a look at the delicate forces that make life on Earth possible. Now, Eruption Floyd. So let's dive deeper. The first major consequence, the oceans break their limits. If the moon's gravitational pull suddenly doubled, the first and most immediate catastrophe would come from the oceans. Right now, the moon creates two major tidal bulges on Earth, one facing the moon and one on the opposite side. These bulges move around the planet as Earth rotates, creating the familiar rhythm of high and low tides. But doubling the lunar pull would not simply double the tides, it would amplify them beyond anything humanity has ever seen. The average high tide on most coastlines is around 1 to 2 meters. But with the moon exerting twice the gravity, global high tides could rise 8 to 12 meters, and in extreme coastal geometries, up to 20 meters or more. That's enough to submerge entire ports, destroy coastal infrastructure, and push seawater miles inland. Cities like New York, Karachi, Mumbai, and Tokyo would see their lower districts swallowed with every tidal cycle. But it gets worse. Stronger tides mean stronger tidal currents, turning normally calm waters into churning, violent flows. Rivers connected to the ocean would reverse direction twice a day, pushing saltwater deep inland and disrupting freshwater ecosystems. Iconic systems like the Amazon River Delta, the Ganges Brahmaputra system, and the Mississippi River would be overrun by surges of seawater, wiping out farms, fisheries, and entire habitats. Real world examples hint at what's possible. In the Bay of Fundy, tides already reach up to 16 meters due to natural resonance. Doubling lunar gravity would make such extremes commonplace worldwide. Storm surges would stack on top of hypertides, creating mega tsunamis capable of overwhelming seawalls and coastal defenses. Entire beaches would vanish permanently beneath the ocean. And this is only the beginning, because while the oceans respond immediately, Earth's crust, rigid, ancient, and full of hidden pressure, is about to face something far more dangerous. The second major consequence, Earth's crust starts to tear. While the oceans respond within hours, Earth's crust reacts more slowly, but far more violently. The moon already causes tiny Earth tides, subtle rises and falls in the solid crust by a few centimeters. We don't feel them, but they're always happening. If the moon's gravitational pull suddenly doubled, these solid Earth tides wouldn't rise by centimeters. They could rise by tens of centimeters, even more in some regions. This additional strain would ripple across tectonic plates like pressure waves in a stressed metal beam. First come the microquakes, thousands of tiny tremors occurring across fault lines globally. These would trigger alarm systems everywhere, but they are only the warning. As the strain builds, major faults, San Andreas, Anatolian, Himalayan, Cascadia, begin slipping more violently and more often. A global spike in magnitude 6 to 7 earthquakes becomes almost guaranteed. But the real danger lies beneath Earth's thin crust. Magma. Our planet's volcanic hotspots and subduction zones rely on delicate balances of pressure. Doubling the lunar gravitational tug disrupts this balance, pulling the crust upward and stretching it ever so slightly. That microscopic stretch is enough to awaken dormant systems. Volcanoes that haven't erupted for centuries could be forced open, like shaken soda cans. Places like Iceland, Hawaii, Japan, the Andes, and the Mediterranean will become centers of intense volcanic activity. Even supervolcanoes like Yellowstone or Toba would see a dangerous rise in pressure. Not a guaranteed eruption, but a terrifying increase in probability. Earth would effectively enter a period of hypergeological activity, with more quakes, more eruptions, and more ground deformation. While humanity could survive rising tides, an eruption choked atmosphere or continent scale fault ruptures would push the planet into long term instability. And still, the chain reaction isn't done. Because the moment the moon's gravity strengthens, Earth's rotation and orbit begin to shift, and that threatens every climate system on the planet. Long term consequences. A new Earth begins to form. If the moon's gravity remained doubled for months or years, Earth would slowly transform into a very different planet. The oceans, the atmosphere, the crust, everything would begin settling into a new equilibrium, one far more extreme than the world we know. The first long term change would be Earth's rotation. The moon already slows Earth's spin by stealing a tiny bit of rotational energy each year. With double gravity, that braking effect becomes far stronger. Days would begin to lengthen measurably within human lifetimes, perhaps by several minutes per year. Over centuries, a single day could stretch beyond 30 hours. Longer days mean longer nights, and that reshapes climates everywhere. Next comes Earth's axial tilt. The moon acts like a stabilizer, preventing Earth from wobbling too much. But with twice the gravitational force, the stabilization becomes too strong. Earth's tilt would become more rigid, reducing seasonal variation. Winters and summers would become less dramatic, but the lack of seasonal mixing could cause massive ecological collapse. Many plants and animals depend on changing seasons to survive. Meanwhile, tidal forces would carve new permanent coastlines. Entire low lying regions, Bangladesh, the Netherlands, Florida, much of Southeast Asia, would be underwater indefinitely. Global salinity patterns would shift, altering ocean currents like the Gulf Stream and the Pacific Conveyor. These currents regulate global climate, so their disruption could plunge some regions into freezing temperatures while turning others into arid heat zones. Human civilization would be forced to adapt dramatically. Coastal megacities would relocate inland, countries would fight over fresh water as saltwater intrusion destroys rivers and aquifers. Agriculture would collapse in some regions and flourish in others newly warmed or cooled. Humanity would survive, but only after reorganizing itself around a planet with new geography and new physics. But perhaps the most unexpected long term consequence is what happens not on Earth, but to the moon itself. Because if its gravity has doubled, its orbit cannot remain stable.
The final outcome: a world forever changed.
If the moon's gravity suddenly doubled, Earth would enter one of the most violent transformations in its history. The oceans would be the first to react, swelling into colossal hypertides that erase coastlines and redraw continents. Rivers would reverse, ports would vanish, entire cities would be claimed by the sea twice a day. Then the crust would respond. Earth would tremble with unrelenting seismic activity, thousands of quakes releasing tensions built over millions of years. Volcanoes would awaken. Pressure deep below the surface would reshape landscapes, and ash filled skies could plunge parts of the world into darkness. Over the long term, the entire rhythm of Earth would slow. Days would grow longer, nights colder, seasons weaker. Ocean currents would fracture, creating pockets of extreme climates around the globe. Humanity would survive, but in a world that feels unfamiliar, unstable, and constantly shifting. And above us, the moon would no longer be a calm, distant companion. With doubled gravity, its orbit would likely shrink, pulling it closer over thousands or millions of years. One day, it could cross the Roche limit, tearing itself apart and forming a magnificent ring system around Earth. Beautiful, but born from destruction. This scenario is extreme, but it reminds us how delicate the balance of our planet truly is. Our world feels stable only because the forces around us allow it to be. Change any one of them, even by a little, and everything transforms. In the end, the moon shapes Earth more than we ever realized. And if its gravity doubled, the world we know would disappear forever.